Afternoon, folks. Welcome once again to Hardly Hollywood Studios here in beautiful downtown Bowlby. It's January 22nd. What I can tell, looks like about 1:30 in the afternoon, and I want to try to, and will hopefully succeed in sort of giving a brief talk on some interesting things that I've noticed about Max Reger's Opus 137, number 6, spiritual song, which I was very generously supplied with from a former colleague at Lewis, Dr. Lawrence Sisk. When he was clearing out his office, he said, "Hey, Bowlby, would you like a collection of Geistliche Lieder by Max Reger?" And I said, "Why, sure, I'd like that very much. Thank you very much." So, in the course of reading and looking through these things, I came across this particular one, the Op number 6, Christ deines Geistliche Süßigkeit. And I've noticed some interesting things that I want to talk a little bit about today. All right, and I want to talk a little bit about first about the text, and then I want to talk a little bit about how I very interestingly Reger's setting mirrors particularly the second verse of this particular spiritual song. So, if you'll pardon me, pardon my stammering through this, and my translation is my own, and the name's Bowlby, not Berlitz. And we'll talk a little about this, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, the first verse reads, "Christ, deines geistig Süßigkeit in mir bereit, nach Willen deiner Mutter. Dein Gewalt ist hier auf Erden breit, drum alle lobs ich Drum alle Zeit lob ich dich, Herr der Guter." So, roughly translated, he's talking about the sweetness of the Lord's Spirit. Invokes his mother, the Virgin Mary, and throughout the world, there's praise for the Lord. Okay, and the third verse goes like this, and goes like this: "Nun sollen wir alle gar mit Schale loben viel süßen Christ, dass der Gute mit seinem Blute zu Hilfe kommen ist." Basically, I would translate that as a sort of a seeking refuge, seeking comfort through by praising and being grateful for the blood of Christ. And again, like I said, Bowlby, not Berlitz. Okay, now the second verse particularly is quite interesting. "Hilf mir durch deinen Namen drei." So help me, Lord, in the name of the Trinities, dass ich hier nicht verfalle, der kranken Welt Unstätigkeit, die bringet Leid wie ein bitter Gale. So here the poet is asking for the Lord's help in the name of the Trinity, and to help that he not the help that this person that the poet, the writer, does not succumb to the instability of the world and its the pain thereof, which pain like a kind of bitter gall. So that sort of gives you an idea of what we're looking for. Basically, it's an invocation for help from the supplicant to the Lord. Okay, so it's this imagery, particularly of verse 2, of a sick world, pain like a bitter gall, and instability that Reger very, very, very cunningly and very, very deceptively, and well, not very expressively, masterfully underscores this with the two outer verses, sort of providing a kind of stable block for the second writing, for the second verse. Okay, so this piece is about 12 measures long, and I want to talk particularly about key situation, the use of keys and the use of chords and the use of part writing to help underscore the basic affect of the text, of particularly dealing with a sick world, its instability, and its pain like a bitter gall, an error, falling into sin, etc., etc. I noticed first that in the keys that we go through, it begins and ends in D major, and then at about measure five, second beat, no, pardon me, third beat of measure 5, going to the third beat of measure 5, we go for basically from an A diminished triad, or an A fully diminished triad, A sharp fully diminished triad, to a B major triad, which is a kind of, and there's a tonicization here. There's a brief references to B major as far back as the second full measure, where you have that A sharp in the bass, but B, B in the key of D is the 6th scale degree, so a tonicization of the 6th scale degree, and as we know, that motions to a 6, especially, but not in this case, but especially the classic example of 5 to 6 is called a deceptive cadence. So there's a deceptive kind of thing, kind of illusion going on here in this piece. Also kind of interesting is a few chordal things about Jim. This is level 2 here. Chords involving C sharp, which of course is the leading tone, of D. And it's particularly interesting that in measure 3 beat 2, where we start heading towards this, ultimately ending up in this tonicization of B as in boy, in the middle of this piece, we have a French 6th chord with a French 6th chord of B, with a C sharp doubled. So we're looking at measure 1, 2, 3, and again, my examples or my supporting videos will show you this. There's a really nice video on YouTube that shows you all this. It shows you the score and it plays it by as you sing it. But anyway, that second beat of measure 3 is a French 6th chord on the second half of that beat, and on the front end of that beat, measure 3 beat 2, first half of that beat, you'll notice that C sharp is doubled in both the alto, not the alto, but the tenor and the soprano. So there's a doubling of that leading tone, which tends to be, in traditional music theory, thought of as something as being a bit dangerous to do. But the reason I think this works is because I think that C sharp 8th note in the tenor, which is moving in contrary motion to the C sharp in the soprano, is acting, that C sharp 8th note is acting in a way like a kind of passing tone and moving in contrary motion from with respect to the soprano's C sharp. So there's a French sixth of B, which helps further cement this idea of a tonicization to B in the fifth measure. Now over here, and this I think is particularly interesting. This is in beat 1 of measure 8. If you take a look at that, you'll notice what you have there is a fully diminished 6/5 of C sharp. So in other words, it's the leading tone chord of the leading tone of the key, which is, and it's the only place in this particular piece where there's a fermata. So, and I found that I've never seen anything like that at any other place in the literature. There might well be some more, but I personally have never seen a tonicization of the leading tone of the home key of a piece. And once again, tonicizing the most unstable key or the most unstable scale degree is quite fascinating and fits, I think, supports very nicely this idea of instability, the world's instability. So those I thought were kind of interesting. And then there are a couple of other things I wanted to talk a little bit about, and particularly part writing errors. Part writing errors that are just wonderful examples of. In measures 5 to 6, across measures 5 to 6, if you look at the tenor and the bass, you have this wonderful, leaping, shameless set of parallel fifths in the tenor and the bass, which, of course, anybody who studied traditional theory, that's a part writing error par excellence. And then on top of that, we also have, if you look on the beat 1 measures, beat 1 of measure 1, measure 6, the beat 1 of measure 6, you'll notice last half of 5 into measure 6, and you compare the alto with the tenor, you have a cross relation D, a D sharp in the alto, and followed by a D natural in the tenor. So there are a number of allusions to deceptive and instability, particularly with the emphasis on the C sharp, as well as the quote-unquote part writing sins, and they're only sins in certain ways, not always. These sins of the cross relation and the parallel fifths, which I thought was really quite fascinating and really quite exciting to think about and to notice, and it's nice having gone through the Bach chorales before doing this one, because this really, you can see a lot of influence, either direct or indirect, of Bach on Reger. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was the 5th Brandenburg Concerto that Reger actually arranged, I think, for 2 pianos. And I think he might have done more of them, but I can't remember offhand. But I can remember hearing a 2-piano arrangement of at least the last movement of the 5th Brandenburg Concerto. And it rocked. It really, really, really did. So here we have it. We have this marvelous series of harmonic, part writing, and key items here supporting this text, which calls for Christ's guidance and mercy while dealing with a sick world and an unstable world, and the pain that the soul feels while dealing with said while dealing with living in said world. Quite fascinating, I think. Quite fascinating indeed. I hope that this will lead you to looking at the two YouTube videos that I'm putting in the comments for this one, both of which are very fine performances, and one of which is a recording with the score of all 6 pieces. Anyway, so right, this is just so fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. And thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time for more fascinating stuff. There's that word again.